Greg works as a porter at the Shepton Hotel in New York. After work, he always grabs a coffee at the cafe across the street. He notices a girl sitting by the window. There she is again. Greg thinks she's here every afternoon. I should go talk to her. Greg walks into the cafe, orders his coffee, and heads over to her table. "Hey," he says, "I'm Greg. Mind if I join you?" "Sure," she replies. "I'm Cassie. I stop by here for coffee every day after work," Greg says, sitting down. "I work as a porter at the Shepton Hotel." He gives her a warm smile. "By the way, you have stunning green eyes." "Do I?" Cassie says without smiling. Greg notices something's off. "Is everything okay, Cassie? You seem a bit upset." "It's nothing," she mumbles. "Come on, you can tell me," Greg says. "Maybe I can help." Cassie hesitates, but finally starts to explain. "My stepdad is staying at the Shepton Hotel," she says. "He has my sketchbooks. I'm an artist, and I need them. But when I ask him for them, he just says, 'No, come back to Boston, and then I'll give them to you.' I don't want to go back to Boston. He's not a good person." Greg frowns. "How long is he staying at the hotel?" "2 more days," Cassie answers. "He's in room 724. "Maybe I can get your sketchbooks for you," Greg says. "I could try to get into his room." "Really? You'd do that?" Cassie asks, her eyes widening. "Meet me here tomorrow at 4:30, Greg says confidently. "Okay, thank you so much," Cassie says, her mood lifting. She checks her watch. "I've got to go now. See you tomorrow." Cassie leaves the cafe and heads back to her hotel room. Once there, she picks up the phone and makes a call. "Hi," she says on the phone. "Yeah, it's me. It's all good. The guy's going to do it. Yes, I'll get them from him tomorrow afternoon. All right, I'll meet you the next morning at 10 a.m. Don't forget the money, $2,000. The next morning, Greg shows up at work earlier than usual. He heads straight for room 724. "I'll just wait for Cassie's stepdad to leave," he thinks. "I don't know his name, but that doesn't really matter." Greg keeps an eye on the door to room 724. After a while, he spots the housekeeper coming to clean the rooms. A few minutes later, a man walks out of room 724. That must be Cassie's stepdad, Greg thinks. He waits until the man is gone, and the housekeeper goes into the room. "I've got to check out the room," he decides. Greg waits until the housekeeper finishes and leaves. Then he sneaks into the room and starts searching for the sketchbooks. "I need to be fast," he tells himself. Where could they be? Suddenly, he spots the sketchbooks next to the bed. "Got them," Greg thinks, grabbing the books. Curious, he flips through the pages. "Wow, Cassie's amazing. These drawings are really good," he thinks, impressed. As Greg heads for the door, He hears the housekeeper shouting behind him. "Hey," she yells. "What are you doing? Come back here." Greg doesn't stop. He hurries out and gets away. Later that afternoon, when his shift is over, Greg exits the hotel through a side door on another street. As he gets closer to the hotel entrance, he spots the man from room 724 again. There he is, Greg thinks. That's definitely Cassie's stepdad. Greg waits until the man goes back into the hotel. Then he heads to the coffee shop. Cassie is sitting at the same table, just like the day before. Greg orders a coffee and sits down with her. "I've got them," he says, placing the sketchbooks on the table with a smile. "That's awesome," Cassie says, smiling. "How can I ever thank you, Greg?" "Well," Greg says, grinning, "you could meet me later, after I go home and get out of this porter uniform." "Sorry, Greg," Cassie says, looking a little awkward. "I can't tonight. How about tomorrow night?" "All right," Greg replies. "Tomorrow night, then. We can grab something to eat first." "Sounds good," she says. "Let's meet here tomorrow at 6. Cassie gets up to leave, but Greg notices something. "Don't forget your key," he says. "Oh, thanks," Cassie stammers, snatching the key from him quickly. "See you tomorrow." Greg watches her leave, then sits back to finish his coffee. That's when his friend Mike walks in. "You're in big trouble, Greg," Mike says, looking serious. Jake Russo's sketchbooks are missing from his room, 724. And guess what? The CCTV caught you leaving his room. "Wait, who's Jake Russo?" Greg asks, feeling a sudden wave of panic. "He's a famous artist," Mike explains. "His sketches are worth thousands, and those sketchbooks? They're worth a fortune." Greg swallows hard. Well, a girl has them," he admits. "A girl? What girl?" Mike demands. "A girl with green eyes," Greg says. And he tells Mike about Cassie and her supposed stepfather. Mike shakes his head. "That's not true. Jake Russo doesn't have a wife or a stepdaughter. She tricked you. You've got to find her and get those sketchbooks back before the police get to you." Greg heads home to his tiny apartment, his mind racing. How am I going to find her? He wonders. She's got the sketchbooks now, so why would she meet me again? She's probably selling them for big money. As he approaches his apartment, he spots a police car parked outside. "Oh no," he thinks. "They're waiting for me. I can't go home." That night, Greg sleeps on a subway train. Early the next morning, a cleaner wakes him up. "Hey, you, get up. You can't sleep here all day." "Sorry," Greg mumbles, standing up. As people start boarding the train, one man notices Greg. He looks at a photo in his newspaper, then at Greg. It's him, the man thinks. The guy from the news. The police are looking for him. Greg notices the man staring at him, and then sees his own face on the front page of the newspaper. "I've got to get out of here," he thinks, bolting off the train. The man runs to a nearby policeman. That's him, the hotel porter. Hey, you, the policeman shouts, chasing Greg. Greg doesn't stop. I need to ditch this uniform, he thinks. It's too obvious. Maybe Mike can help. Greg rushes to Mike's apartment. Mike, I need new clothes, Greg says urgently. I can't go back to my place. My face is in the paper, and I know, Mike interrupts. Come in. Do you know where the girl is? Mike asks as Greg changes. No, Greg admits. Think, Greg. There must be something you remember about her. Suddenly, Greg snaps his fingers. Her key. It's for the Dolphin Hotel, a cheap place near 42nd Street. She's got to be staying there. What time is it? Almost 9, Mike says. Perfect. She might still be there, Greg says, grabbing his things. Thanks, Mike. 20 minutes later, Greg reaches the Dolphin Hotel. Am I too late? He wonders, scanning the area. Just then, he spots Cassie coming out of the hotel. Cassie, he shouts. Wait, I need to talk to you. Cassie looks at him but doesn't stop. She says something to a driver waiting nearby and quickly gets into a car. Great, Greg mutters. Pier 83, says an old man nearby. Greg looks at him, surprised. What? The girl told the driver to go to Pier 83 West 42nd Street for the Circle Line boat. The man explains. Greg grins. Thanks, he says, and starts running. At Pier 83, Greg buys a ticket and boards the boat, scanning for Cassie. But he doesn't notice a woman staring at him. It's him, she whispers to her companion. The guy from the paper. Call the police, Eddie. Eddie pulls out his phone and makes the call. A little later, Greg spots Cassie talking to a man on the boat. But before he can approach, 2 policemen board the boat and quickly find him. Where are Jake Russo's sketchbooks? One officer asks. I don't have them, Greg says. You're after the wrong person. She's the one with the sketchbooks. The officers glance toward Cassie. He's right, one says. They approach Cassie and the man she's talking to. I don't understand, Cassie exclaims as the officers move in. You're both coming with us, one officer says. You've got some explaining to do. Later, Greg accompanies the police to return the sketchbooks to Jake Russo. I'm really sorry, Mr. Russo, Greg says, explaining everything. It's all right, Jake says, smiling. But next time, stay away from girls with stunning green eyes.